What's up, everyone? Hopefully, you're not here because your flight was grounded. I hope everyone today is doing well, that the massive outage that's actually happening today is not something that's actually affecting you negatively. I'd love to know how you're all doing with this outage and if it's affecting you. I know Roach had hit me up earlier saying that he's facing some minor issues and hasn't really affected me at all. But I'm curious to see if it's affected any of you guys. Let me know in the comments below. Today, on July 19th, software update from CrowdStrike basically wreaked havoc globally, leading to widespread outages. Although the incident isn't actually a cyber attack, it's hopefully a wake-up call to switch hosting from Windows to Linux, if nothing else. I think it really shows the significant issues within Microsoft's actual ecosystem, which is nothing new. The hacking group Loft, also known as Loft Heavy Industries, kicked Microsoft in the teeth through a reasonable disclosure for almost 10 years. They formed this hacking group in 1992. That was 32 years ago. It really goes to show how long Microsoft has been just completely screwing up in multiple ways. And back then, they would just totally refuse to even acknowledge the fact that these guys had actually found vulnerabilities, which is nuts. Now, keep in mind, this isn't some little rinky-dink group. One of their primary affiliations was the Cult of the Dead Cow, which, if you've ever been in the hacking scene, you're probably very well familiar with, which is another infamous hacking group, essentially, from back in the day. The New York Times did a featured article on them in 1999, and they also testified in front of Congress. So, kind of a big deal. Shout out to Mudge, by the way. The group ended up shutting down in 2000. I'm not a fan of Microsoft myself, but unfortunately, until I switched to DaVinci Resolve, I'm pretty much stuck with Adobe products, which really sucks and forces me to stay inside of the trash Windows ecosystem for my production anyways. My daily driver is Linux Mint, preferably though. My point with all this is that for a long time, we've seen Microsoft get caught with their pants down, and today was just another great example of a complete Microsoft fail by a company that has been excelling in failures for 49 years now. So that leads us to this other company, CrowdStrike. Many of you already are very familiar with the Microsoft operating system, and in fact, probably have to be living under a rock if you haven't actually heard about it or haven't used it as an adult. CrowdStrike, on the other hand, is a completely different thing altogether. CrowdStrike is basically just a cybersecurity company. Its most well-known product is called Falcon Platform, and this platform essentially tries to catch bad actors who are trying to infiltrate various computer systems or servers or whatever. Typically, you see both CrowdStrike, Falcon, and Microsoft working together as a team. Many people, including threat actors I've interviewed, have stated that they feel that Microsoft Defender is ample as a defense for your average end user, whether working, shopping, streaming, gaming, or browsing. That said, it's not always enough, and sometimes it can, completely miss fairly sophisticated attacks, and that's exactly where CrowdStrike is supposed to come in. CrowdStrike uses AI and things like, accurate time monitoring to try to catch stuff that Windows Defender might overlook or might be invisible actually to it. The impact of the outage is actually pretty severe. The CrowdStrike update triggered numerous Windows systems to have the blue screen of death, or BSOD, as it's typically called. And the impact of the outage is pretty intense. The CrowdStrike update triggered numerous Windows systems to BSOD, or have the blue screen of death. That's where they freeze up and they basically shut down. This problem cascaded into massive disruptions across various sectors, from airline operations, where airlines such as American Airlines and EasyJet experienced severe delays and ultimately cancellations as their systems depended on things like Microsoft services failed. Airports had to revert to manual check-in processes, leading to really long queues and frustrated passengers, which is completely understandable. In addition, several other airlines have actually requested FAA assistance with technical issues. According to the FAA News, healthcare services. Many healthcare providers in the UK lost access to patient records, appointment systems, and prescription services. This forced medical staff to use manual methods, compromising patient care and basically just delaying treatments. Grocery stores were affected too. ATMs and other financial systems also faced a bunch of outages, disrupting transactions and leading to widespread inconvenience and issues for all their end users. Retail stores, regular small and medium, large companies, all were affected. And really most concerning were some emergency services. The entire scope of the outage was really, really large, affecting approximately 24,000 customers that we know offhand. The number of individual computers actually impacted, no one really actually knows at this point, as many of the affected customers were actually large organizations. CrowdStrike serves nearly 60% of Fortune 500 companies, and more than half of the Fortune 1000 saw this error ripple through a significant portion of the global business infrastructure. So one thing I wanted to get across is that, this isn't really a isolated incident. The recent CrowdStrike-induced outage is part of a larger pattern of problems that I feel plagues Microsoft products just in general on a daily basis. Frequent and disruptive outages are definitely something that Microsoft customers are fairly familiar with, and they're things that have occurred fairly recently. There's a Microsoft Teams outage where earlier in January, Microsoft Teams faced a major outage that affected users globally, causing various issues like login problems and message delays and connectivity issues, which obviously very, very bad if you're actually depending on that for business communication. The root cause was a networking problem within Microsoft's actual infrastructure. And another issue we saw was with Microsoft Windows updates. The June updates in 24, obviously, with Windows 11 caused significant issues, including things like taskbar malfunctions and driver conflicts, which forced a ton of users to actually roll back to previous versions. Another instance of Microsoft, just screwing everything up was another set of buggy updates and software instability. Another example was some buggy updates and software instability that related to Outlook. New Outlook 2024 was severely criticized. I just owned on a lot of forums for reducing functionality and performance issues. Users had reported difficulties accessing things like emails and managing attachments, which is kind of the point of Outlook. It's like, imagine trying to open up your web browser and it just doesn't connect to the internet and everything's set. That's kind of the issue. It's absolutely insane that they can make a product that doesn't even do its main function. It's nuts. Securing vulnerabilities. We saw a ton of vulnerabilities lately with Microsoft products that are, more often than not, definitely the main targets of cyber attacks due to their ridiculous amount of vulnerabilities that they actually have, which, also date back to, when we were talking about Loft earlier, blowing up their spot. Looking at modern issues like the May 2024 patch addressed 61 flaws, including 3 zero-day vulnerabilities across various Microsoft services, which is no small number of actual issues to have, especially for a company that is well versed in having vulnerabilities as Microsoft. OT system attacks. These high-profile cyber attacks, such as the one on the Aliquipta, I probably totally butchered that, water plant, exploited vulnerabilities in Microsoft's operational technology systems, which again caused significant disruptions. So it's my point with all this. Microsoft sucks is basically, my point. Like, now would be a great time for anyone who's actually running a server or has, this software is affected by it, to seriously start doing some investigation into mitigating over to a Linux server. And I know, like, I'm being totally one-sided in this, given the fact that, like, CrowdStrike is the one that actually put out the update. They're the ones who basically did this. But I mean, I just hate Microsoft. I really do. Also, the level of suck is evident in the fact that, if you had this on Linux or Mac, if you're running CrowdStrike on Linux or Mac, and you were hosting, like, you would have no issues. So, like, the CrowdStrike outage didn't impact Mac or Linux systems. So for me, this shows a pretty important difference in the stability and security of these operating systems compared to Windows. And, like, we're not even getting into the telemetry or the fact that Windows is just basically spyware, or at best, it has a ton of bloatware. Both Mac OS and Linux are often praised for things like, their security features, which make them a lot less susceptible to such widespread disruptions. And I cover why Windows sucks and, what makes Linux better in another video that actually, the creating of this video spawned the creation of that video, which basically just talks about the benefits of Linux over Windows. So the actual fix, from what we're seeing, from what they put out, it is fairly simple. To fix this issue from CrowdStrike, if you actually have it, and it's causing this blue screen of death, it's pretty simple. You just boot Windows into safe mode, or Windows Recovery Environment, or WRE, as it's called. And so basically you boot Windows into safe mode. Like, what is safe mode? It's a diagnostic mode of Windows that starts the computer with a minimal set of drivers and services that are actually running. Basically, this mode helps to troubleshoot and fix issues by loading only the most essential of components. And I've had to use this mode extensively in the past. That's probably why, Microsoft saw fit to build it into their systems to begin with. But it's fairly easy to enter safe mode. Just press and hold the shift key while clicking restart from the power menu. This initiates the restart process into Windows Recovery Environment. Navigate to Troubleshoot, then to Advanced Options, then Startup Settings. Press F4 key to boot into safe mode after the ecosystem restarts. An alternative method, if you can't access the actual login screen, is to turn off your computer, then turn it on, then turn it off 3 times. On the third attempt, Windows will boot into WRE. Follow the same steps as above to enter safe mode. Navigate to the CrowdStrike driver folder, which is located in, C, depending on where you store things, but C, Windows, System32, drivers, CrowdStrike is the typical location for it. Locate and delete the problematic driver file, which again is in the CrowdStrike folder, and it should be C-000000291 wildcard.sys. This is the problematic driver file that's actually causing all those issues. Then reboot the system. After deleting the file, reboot the system. The system should now boot without encountering the blue screen of death. After that, consider migrating your operations to a Linux host because Windows is trash. The timeline as of the creation of this video is as follows. At 3:55 a.m. on July 19th, the first occurrence happened where Microsoft said it determined the underlying cause and recovered the majority of services. However, the company said that some customers may still experience issues in the region, which has to be the biggest blanket statement I've heard of this whole thing. It's like, saying, hey, we fixed the issue, but you still might have issues. Well, that tells us absolutely nothing. It's effectually saying nothing to the people while saying something. CrowdStrike rolled back the update after the major outage, and the London Stock Exchange at that time said that they were investigating technical issues. An hour later, at 4:55 a.m., CrowdStrike and Microsoft shares lost ground. Microsoft said services were continuing to see improvements, and KLM suspended most of its operations due to global computer outage, saying that the outage has made it impossible to handle flights. They said this in a statement. We realize that, especially given the summer vacation, this is extremely inconvenient for our customers, and we're working hard to resolve the problem. Sky News was temporarily unavailable to broadcast. At 5:55 a.m., Britain's Public Health Services said that most general practitioner services were suffering disruptions. India's IT minister was, quote, in touch with Microsoft, and the FAA halted Delta, American Airlines, and United departures because of this outage. German hospitals canceled elective procedures. American Airlines said that it resumed operations, and the CrowdStrike CEO said that the company was resolving a defect. Swiss National Cybersecurity Services said that system failures were caused by CrowdStrike, and blue screen of death error messages affected Microsoft users globally at this point. At 6:55 a.m., the United States National Security Council became aware of the incident. German institutions were working with partners to actually resolve the IT outage. At 7:55 a.m., IT outage might not have had a incredibly straightforward fix. Some quote-unquote experts were saying ongoing tech disruptions were set to be the largest IT outage in history, and security researchers were quoted as saying UK researchers were impacted by the IT outage. A British hospital declared a critical incident in the wake of the IT outage. At 8:55 a.m., the CrowdStrike CEO made an apology saying, we're deeply sorry. The MTA in New York City's transit system said they were good and completely operational. At 8:56 a.m., Mass General Brigham canceled non-urgent surgeries and hospital visits. 2 South African banks said services were fully restored. And at 9:21 a.m., the U.S. markets were operating normally. At 9:23 a.m., CrowdStrike CEO said they were working with every customer, quote. 9:41 a.m., Department of Homeland Security was working with CrowdStrike and others to assess and address the outage. Finally, at 9:42, Biden woke up and was finally briefed on the outage 6 hours after the original incident actually occurred. This was no doubt after he had his morning oatmeal and Metamucil and, cleaned his dentures. At 9:43 a.m., health systems across the United States were facing outages still. FedEx said they were substantial disruptions from the outage, and UPS also said they were impacted. Come 9:44 a.m., Amazon Web Services said that there would be some connectivity issues, and those connectivity issues they attributed to the CrowdStrike glitch. At 9:49 a.m., Union Pacific was facing processing delays while other railroads were operating absolutely normally. It will definitely be interesting to see how this progresses. I hope everyone's doing well out there, staying safe. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.